Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining our e-seminar today on advanced review features in NeuroWorks. My name is Franco Avolio, and I am the Neurology and Sleep Education Manager with Natus Medical. Today's session, we will be talking about a number of features that are available in NeuroWorks. Some may consider these advanced features, others may not, and so I apologize ahead of time if you find some of these features a bit redundant, but for some of you I know this will be new. The software that I'll be using today to demonstrate the features is NeuroWorks version 7. So if you do not have the latest version of software, you may notice some of the features are not available in your version 6.1 because I'm using a newer version. I will be reviewing and demonstrating a few things in the montage that are available. Channel sets. There's a new button in the toolbar that's called vertical paging, allows you to display set number of channels in your window. We'll be looking at some of the trend charts. We'll be looking at workspaces, grid lines, some changes in the Annotation Viewer. Then I'll be talking about a few additional settings. There's a setting where you can have your computer restart a study automatically after a set time. I want to show you something in the channel labeler. It's just a resize option. I want to show you something in the report templates. I will show you how to compress video, talk about pruning a little bit, exporting your data points from a study into an Excel file, and I'll end the session talking about the ICU touchscreen option that is available in NeuroWorks. And I have a video that I want to share with you at the end, which simply demonstrates the touchscreen option that is available. Okay, so I've got a study open right now, and I'm just going to go through a couple of features here in an actual study. If we go to Edit Settings in our montage window, you have the option, I'm just going to select a montage here, we have the option of utilizing the Set column. When we utilize the Set column, what this allows us to do, it allows us to group our channels into set groups. So by default, all of the channels belong to Set 1. If I wanted to isolate a group of channels, I'm just going to left click on the first column and hold the Shift key and left click on the last column. I'm just highlighting a random number of channels here. I'm going to right click on the last cell and select the multiple option. And I'm going to say that in addition to belonging to Set 1, I also want to make these channels part of Set 2. So I'm going to check off Set 2. All right, I'm going to create another set. I'm going to highlight the first column, and I'm going to highlight the last row here to include the photic and the oximetry. And I'm going to right-click, actually let's do it up to photic. So I'm going to highlight the first column, highlight the last photic channel, and exclude the chin and OSAT. Right-click, select multiple, make this part of Set 3. Click OK. And again, you can just choose any random group that you like. I'm just selecting any random group here just to demonstrate the feature. And I'll pick this set here and I'll make this part of Set 4. Click OK. Alright, so we'll see next to each of the rows what sets that each of the channels belong to. Click OK. You want to save the changes? Yes. Alright, so when I press Control 1 on my keyboard, we don't see any changes because it displays all of our channels. If I click on Control 2, that corresponds to Group 2, Control 3, Control 4, and then Control 5. So it's pressing the Control button and the corresponding number corresponds to the channel set group. Control 1 brings back all of your channels. There's an additional button in the toolbar here where it says N, where it allows you to limit the number of channels. If you left click on this, I can choose to display 6 channels and continue to scroll throughout the study. If I click on it again, it returns all the channels. I can pick any set number of channels here just by selecting one of the options. So again, you left click on it and you choose the number of channels you want to display. And it just allows you, it's just a quick way of reducing the number of channels that are visible on your screen. If you want to, as far as grid lines, you know probably already that grid lines can be adjusted by going up to View Grid Lines and deciding whether or not to enable the major grid lines or minor and major grid lines. The major grid lines are set by going to Edit Settings, Time Base, and you can control the increments of your major grid lines by selecting an option in the drop-down menu. If I change this and click Apply, we will see more grid lines. I'm just going to limit this to 6 channels so we can see our grid lines more clearly. If you want to add horizontal grid lines, of course, that's an option as well, which you can enable by going back into the montage and scrolling to the far right of your montage, and you can specify your grid line increments per channel. So if I just selected the top 3 channels here, for example, I'm going to right-click, select Grid Settings. Now I can configure a default setting for my montage that every time I load this montage, do I want the grid lines to be on or off? So if I click on, they'll be turned on, and I can define up to 6 increments. So I will type in, for example, minus 50 microvolts and positive 50 microvolts. And I'll even put in a 0 baseline. Click OK. We've now defined the increments for these channels. I'm going to save it to our montage. Click OK. I'm going to limit this to 6 channels and just remove some of the grid lines here by going to Grid Lines, and I'm going to display none this time. Alright, so you can see our grid lines displaying on our channels. If you want to turn them off, you can right-click on the individual channel and simply turn it off. The grid lines need to be defined beforehand in order for you to have the option to turn them on or off. There's an icon in our toolbar that allows you to display the Trend Summary Toolbar. So I'm going to click on this button, and here we have our Trend Summary Toolbar. I'm just going to make this a little bigger. If you look on the far right-hand side of the screen, you'll notice that there are some tabs for our Trend Summary Toolbar. If we right-click in the space here, and I select Go to our Trend Plots, I can display some trend charts that are available. So for example, if I'm using amplitude or AEG analysis, I can select a trend chart here. I can add a few more trends to this and make this part of tab number 1. If I click on tab number 2, it brings me a blank slate. Right-click again, and I can add our brain symmetry index in here, for example. And let's say on tab 3, I've already got this configured for a few other ones. Let's go to tab 4, right-click, go to Trend Plots again, and we can add, let's see, BSI, brain symmetry, just for delta. So if you click on each of these tabs, it will save whichever trend you have added to those tabs. The arrangement of your window, the fact that we've got our Trend Summary Toolbar here at the bottom, the Study Toolbar here at the bottom, the fact that our Annotation Viewer is showing at a set size. You can also move your toolbars around if you like. All of these settings, including your background colors as well. So if I wanted to change my background color, I went to File, Customize Color, and changed it to a lighter blue, let's say. I can save these settings by using the Workspaces button. So if I click on the Workspaces button, the first time I'm going to click Save Workspace As, and it prompts me for a name. And I can say this is EEG Review, and click OK. So it saves our workspace. I'm just going to revert back to another workspace. Okay, let's go back to this one here, Workspace 1. So here's Workspace 1. When I open the study, I can load my EEG Review workspace. All right, I'm going to go back to Workspace 1. Another toolbar that I want to introduce you to, and it's called our Pruning Toolbar. So before I talk about this new Instant Pruning Toolbar, I want to just remind you of our current function. If we go up here to where it says Pruning, and it clips, this allows us to set or define segments within our studies. I'm just going to clear these ones out. by now you know that you can extract segments within a study by marking start and end points. So if I jump to this particular location in the study and I click on the Start button, it prompts me for a button, and I can give this a title. I can say this is the beginning of a seizure, event 1, for example. I can scroll forward and mark an end point. All right, let's continue scrolling forward, mark a start point. Let's say this is seizure 2. And mark an end point. And I can continue scrolling, marking a start point, marking an end point. Now, if I click on the third button that says Edit Clips, it includes all of our clips here. All right, now from this list, I can create another study. If I click on the Prune button, and I can just create a separate study that says seizures, for example. And as you know now, if I click on this, click OK, it will take these 3 clips and combine them into one study record. So if I go to my database window, I will now see a new copy of my prune study. And we can see that. This is the name that I gave it, seizures, and here's our prune study. The original study is 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and this new prune study is 2 minutes and 44 seconds. The Annotation Viewer includes several tabs at the bottom of the toolbar. If you click on the first one, All, it will display all of the annotations that are present in the current study. All right, if you scroll down, you'll see all event types, you'll see system tags, and just general comments. There's another tab that's called Filtered. If you click on the Filter tab, this will allow you to bring up the filter configuration window, and here you can configure which annotations you'd like to see in your annotation window. So, for example, if you wanted to look at, let's say, Excel spikes, I'm just going to clear everything. I'm going to scroll down and click on Excel spike. If I minimize my filter window, I can now focus on just looking at Excel spikes throughout the study. Of course, clicking on these will navigate to that particular point. Now, you can save these configured filters by using the additional tabs at the bottom here. So by default, the software includes an event tab, which is basically a pre-configured filter that is designed to display any type of event as checked off in the filter configuration box here. All right, so if you click on Info, Info is configured to display annotations from this particular category. And if you click on the Spike tab, this is designed to display events that are considered spikes. If you wanted to create an additional tab, a custom tab, all you have to do is click on the last tab here where it says Define New Filter. If I click on Define New Filter, it brings up a dialog where I can type in the name of my tab. So let's say, for example, I want to create a tab that will display every time the patient pressed the Patient Event button. So I'm going to call this my Patient Event tab. I'm going to click on the OK button. And now I'm going to bring up the Filter Configuration tool. And I'm going to check and then uncheck everything just to give myself a clean window. I'm going to scroll down to Patient Events. I'm going to check that and minimize my filter window. And as you can see in the Annotation Viewer, we have 4 instances in the study where the patient pressed the Patient Event button. So now the Patient Event tab remains saved in your software, and you can simply click on the tab anytime you want to quickly access only the Patient Event tab. The Annotation tab provides you with one way or mechanism to navigate through your study. Another option exists by going up into View and going to Toolbars and enabling the instant pruning option. Now what I'm about to show you is something you may consider in place of creating a pruned study. I'll explain why. So at the top here, when I clicked on, or when I enabled the instant pruning toolbar, what it did was added some tabs at the top of our waveform window. So by default there's an All tab. The All tab is basically designed to display all of the pages that were recorded in your study. Let's say I click on the Spikes tab. Now what happens is that the window will simply display segments in the study where an XL spike was detected. What it does is it eliminates all the other pages in the study that you may not be interested in and displays only those segments where an annotation was made denoting an XL spike, for example. So if we look at our window now, you'll notice this vertical bar here, and the vertical bar is basically a seam where one segment is connected to another. I'm going to just move my time bar. So let's go to the left of this vertical bar here, and let's look at the time. It's 17:55 and 49 seconds. As soon as I move my time bar to the right of that vertical bar, this seam, you'll notice that the time jumps from 17:55 to 18:03. Again, this vertical bar denotes the beginning and ending of a segment of interest. In this case, the segment of interest are points in the study where XL spikes were detected. I'm just going to continue scrolling through the study, and you'll see that what the software has done is basically consolidated, taken all of the segments in the study containing XL spikes, and it's put them together so that you can have a very quick look at all of these events of interest. You can create additional tabs by clicking on the New Tab button. If I click on the New Tab button, and let's say I wanted to create a new tab called Patient Event. I'm going to type in Patient Events, and I want this tab to display only those segments in the study where the patient pressed the Patient Event button. So first off, I'm going to uncheck the XL spike and make sure that my others are unchecked, but I will check the Patient Event option. Now I have a choice here where I can specify how many minutes before the actual patient event annotation was placed and how many minutes after the patient event button was pressed. I'm just going to increase this to 4 minutes. Alright, so I've now configured this tab to display only segments displaying an annotation where the patient event button was pressed. I'm going to click OK. You'll see now we have a new tab called Patient Events. And if I click on my Patient Event tab in the Annotation Viewer, this just gives us a more focused look. And so if we look at our patient events now, this particular tab will only display segments in the study where the Patient Event tab was pressed. Okay, so since there are 4 instances where the Patient Event button was pressed, and because we configured our rule to display 2 minutes before and 4 minutes after, we're looking at approximately 6 minutes in total duration. 6 minutes times 4 instances gives us 24 minutes total. So rather than looking at a 24-hour study, for example, we've now reduced our view to approximately 24 minutes because we've used this Patient Event tab to simply identify the segments of interest. Alright, so the same goes for your events. If you are only interested in looking at XL events, and let's say you've got a total of 10 events, each lasting approximately 10 minutes, we're looking at 100 minutes of our study versus looking at 72 hours, for example. You may already be familiar with the voltage cursor here, and I'm just going to show one channel. The voltage cursor, if I left-click on a point, will display the voltage value. If I left-click again, it'll give me the voltage difference between both points. It also gives me zero crossing frequency of that waveform. If I just left click and drag, you will see in the top left-hand corner that the voltage values will fluctuate as I move along my signal. There's an audio option. If anyone is trained in listening to an EEG, you can go up to audio and click on run. And this gives you the option to select unique channels, or you can select all the channels. And if I click on the play button, you probably can't hear the audio on your end, but it will actually play back the audio of your EEG. So again, if you are trained to listening to your EEG signals, you can utilize this option to play back your signals. If you are engaged in long-term study recordings, there's an option that's available under Edit Settings, Acquisition, that allows you to have a study restart every 24 hours in this case. So if you are running a long-term study, let's say you've got a 5-day study, for example, you can configure your acquisition software to stop recording and restart the study again every 24 hours. If you're interested in breaking up a long-term study into segments, such as a 5-day recording, you can utilize this option. If not, you can just have one large study record with your 5 days of recording. But this is available. In order to enable this, you need to go to Edit Settings, the Acquisition tab, and check off the box that says Restart the Study, and you can define your hours here. The next time you start your recording, as long as this is checked, your recording will continue to record, and then once it reaches 24 hours, it will stop and restart again. If you are recording a study with video, by default, you're probably recording a high-quality recording, video recording, probably 30 frames per second. If file size is an issue for you and you want to compress or reduce the video size, one option that is available to you, compress your video after a study has been done. Now, in order to enable this video squeeze option, we need to exit the study first of all. All right, so I'm going to go to Edit Settings, go to Review, and there's a video squeeze option. Right now, it's disabled. I can't check this at all. And that's because I have a study open right now. So I need to close the study. And then you need to go to Start and access your NeuroWorks EEG, which you can also access by going to the Excel Tech menu and selecting NeuroWorks EEG. Go up to Edit Settings, go to your Review tab now, and now you will see that the setting is enabled. All right, so I'm going to enable this so that this becomes available if I am pruning, for example. You can also define your compression rate here. All right, click OK. Now we can go back and let's open our study with video. So if I decided to take my original clips that I had marked, this is where the video squeeze option becomes available. If you look at our video column, all right, you will see a solid square displayed under the video icon. And it tells us right now that the size of our clip is 18 megabytes. All right, if I left click on this, the icon changes and it displays kind of a half-shaded square, which indicates that you are selecting the squeeze or compressed video option. You'll notice the corresponding change in our file size. If I left click on this again, it will remove video completely from the clip. So there are 3 toggle points. Left click once, you get a solid square, you will get your full video quality. If I left click on it again, you get the half shade, which compresses it and reduces our file size to 2. And if you left click on it again, it removes video altogether from your clip. Again, in order to have this option available, you need to have that setting that I just showed you that says Enable Video Squeeze. That needs to be set beforehand. So if I select squeeze video for all of these, now I can prune a study with compressed video. This will not take your original study and compress the video in that study in the same study record. It creates a new study record containing your compressed video. So if for all intents and purposes you wanted to keep your original study, you could simply just create a pruned clip where your start point is at the beginning of the study and your end point is at the end of the study. Select your compressed video option in your window here, and then create a pruned study, which ends up being a duplicate copy of your original study, only containing compressed video. And if we click close, and that will appear again in our database window, this time with compressed video. I want to show you something in our channel labeler. If we go to Programs and select Excel Tech Channel Labeler, this is just a minor change here. When you add a grid to your channel labeler, I'm just going to add the 5x4 grid. Alright, just give it a name, left temporal 1. Alright, there's a parameter in here that says size that allows you to control the size of your grid. So if I decrease it, or I can just type in 50, click the Apply button, you'll see a corresponding change in your grid. If I click OK, if I hold the Control button and use the scroll wheel on my mouse, this is another way of controlling the size of your grid. I'm going to close that. In the Study Information form, if you go to any of the Report tabs, you will see that there is a toolbar available at the top there. Alright, you can control your font styles and sizes. The first button allows you to actually save some remarks, some statements. So if you had a standard statement that you wanted to describe, you find that you're using over and over again in a report, I can save this statement by clicking the Save icon, and I'll give it a name. Click Save, and it will appear in here as an option. So if I go to a new Report tab, I can go up here, select Depression, and it'll populate with the statement. Alright, so I can have another paragraph in here. Then you can just save your statement. So when you are in a new tab, you can select from your drop-down the statements to start building your report. If you are interested in doing some analysis of the actual data points in your study, you can do so by going to File, selecting the Export option, and I'm just going to select a location, and I'll just give this a name, sample, save. Alright, so what happens here, it gives you the option to select some or all of the channels, and you can select a time period. So right now it's 11:41, and I'm just going to choose a short sample here. 11:41 to, let's say, 11:42 or 11:43. Allows you to define your units, microvolts or millivolts. Pick microvolts. Gives you an estimation of your file size. Click the OK button. So what it's doing now, it's exporting all of the data points, whatever your sampling frequency is, all of the corresponding data points, and it's saving it into a text file. Once this is done saving, alright, once this is done saving, here's our text file. I'm going to right click and select Open with Excel, for example. You don't have to use Excel. You can open it up in any other program that can open a text document. And what you'll see then is a sampling. So these numbers correspond to your channel numbers. You're not going to see the channel labels, but it does correspond to your channel numbers. And it will display a breakdown of all the actual sampling values or the voltage values that were used to create that signal. And again, you don't need Excel necessarily. You can use any other program that can open and display a text file containing such data. So I'm going to end with talking briefly about the ICU touch option. If you are interested in utilizing a touchscreen monitor, this option is available. If you go to Tools, Options, and you select the Options tab, there's an option at the bottom here that says Use ICU Touchscreen Mode. Okay, you need to check that. You can specify whether or not, if you're using Persist Magic Marker. I don't have it on my machine, but if you do have it as an option, you can decide to use Persist Magic Marker trends, or you can use the Natus trends. If you are touching your screen as you are reviewing or performing some functions, after 1 minute of inactivity, you can have it automatically switch back to a particular view. You can have it switch back to a live view or review mode or view, or have it switch to your trends chart view after 1 minute of inactivity. So you can control that over here. Alright, so in order to enable this, you need to have this checked, and of course, you need to have a touchscreen monitor connected to your machine. I'll give you an idea of what that looks like. Alright, so basically, the screen, for all intents and purposes, looks the same. The only difference is you can use your fingers now to control the operations. You can type in the username using the keyboard and click the OK button with your finger. On the left-hand side of your window, you'll see some icons. These icons are simply just shortcuts that allow you to enable certain functions. So right now we just touch the impedance button, which allows you to do an impedance check. You can click the End button, which ends our impedance. Annotates. There's a video icon that you can use. Alright, so again, it's using all your fingers. You can you're not left-clicking and drag here. You're just putting your finger on the title bar of a window, and you can move it about the screen. So in the touchscreen mode, it's your finger that acts as your mouse pointer, essentially. If you want to double-click on something, a double tap of your finger can be used. And again, you can left-click and drag by just putting your finger on the screen and dragging it across the screen to sort of scroll through your study. You can change montages. It's pretty intuitive overall. Okay, as the video is nearing an end here, if you have any questions, please chat them or type them in the box below. I want to take this opportunity to thank you once again for registering for this event and for your time today. Thank you, everyone. This concludes our session. Have a great weekend.